for me, it felt like the biggest betrayal I had ever experienced. Who am I? I must be a terrible person. Like for this to happen at this point in my life and for somebody to not want to have a baby with me.
Welcome to Women Thrive podcast. This is where you'll get to hear incredible stories of female entrepreneurs, business owners, women from all walks of life. Myself, Raymond Jan, and my co-host Abigail will be interviewing incredible women, hearing inspiring stories of women from all around the world. I have no doubt that you will find something that will be life-changing for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us for our future episodes.
So welcome everyone to another episode of the Women Thrive podcast. My name is Abigail Rebecca. We're going to be talking about something really exciting today. Do you sometimes feel in life that things aren't quite going your way? They're not really what you expect. Sometimes we can be so intent on an outcome. I want to create this. I want to manifest this in my life. This is how I want my life to be. And it's almost like you've got blinkers on. Like a horse with blinkers, you're like really focusing on what you want. And sometimes that can actually stop us from seeing other opportunities that are waiting to come in, or maybe a situation that might even be better than something that you expect. So what if you can start to change your outlook? What if you start to look at things a different way? You start to reposition the way that you look at your life, the way that you design your life, so you can really start to live this life by design. You design your own life. This is what we're going to be talking about today. So we're very, very excited that you are joining us today. But let me introduce our guest. So I'd love to introduce you to Carole Podell, who is a podcast host. She's a personal and professional change-making mentor. And she's a native New Yorker. I mean, come on, she lives in a beautiful city in the US. She's a single mother by choice, and she's the dynamic host of a podcast. So she has her own podcast. It's called She Takes the Lead. And this is where she leverages her extensive, diverse experience and network to provide her listeners with the tools and know-how to navigate their own professional and personal trajectories. Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Really excited to talk about this. And, you know, we've really spoken about quite openly, Ramonda and I, when we were recording the first few episodes of this podcast, that this is like no holes barred, like we just say it how it is. And I think it's really refreshing to have conversations like this. And I'm really interested in hearing your personal experience, actually, and your point of view. So I'm really interested about how we can really start to take control of our lives, right? We're not passive bystanders in our life. We can actively grab it by the balls and really start to move forward with it.
Amen to those balls. Yes.
Carole, it's so great to have you here today. And I'd really love to start by opening up about your story. Like, why are you so passionate about the work that you do? What was it that had you to start your podcast and for you to do the work that you do now in this world?
Ultimately, at about 34 years old, my entire universe just got shifted. I had been in a relationship for 14 years. He was like my first of everything, my virginity, my dating, all of it. And he said he didn't want children. And I had always wanted a family. And my career had kind of really gotten off path of what I thought I wanted to do. And everything looked good on the outside, but nothing was making me happy. And now I was coming home on the floor trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do. And also now wanted to have a baby, and I couldn't. Like, we had been trying and I couldn't. And he didn't really go to the doctor, so I didn't know if it was him or me. And then I was 34, and at 35, you become like a gestationally ancient person. And I spent the next, now almost 15 years reinventing and kind of opening up the blinders to what I had thought in my mind was what I was supposed to be doing. And just letting it in and trying shit out, because I didn't have any other choice at that point. I was not happy. Nothing was making me feel good. I wasn't making the money that I wanted to be making. I wasn't able to have a child, and I was now dating for the first time as a grown woman. I hadn't gone out and partied. I hadn't gone out and done these things really. And now I was like, okay, well, now I'm in my 30s when everybody else has a family and a home and a career, and I'm starting again. And I do it. I started the podcast and everything else because it over time taught me how to really take the lead in my own life. I have a beautiful little girl. She is 6. And it took me the 12 years between that and when she was born. But I was on fertility for 4 years. I was literally speaking with the adoption agency because I couldn't get pregnant. And I was 12 weeks pregnant, not thinking it was going to work because I'd already had a bad miscarriage. And all of these things brought me to this place where I was like, you can do anything. It doesn't always look like what you think it's supposed to look like, but you can do it. And if you open your mind and your eyes up, for me at least, the world opened up when I just let go of what I thought I was supposed to be doing and how I was supposed to be doing it and what it looked like. And I think it's so important for women to know that their lives don't stop at this place, and our lives can be what we want them to be. We just need to support ourselves in the process of it and empower ourselves and take the lead, you know?
It's a really good message. So am I right in saying then, so you were with your partner for a long, long, long time. And then when you got to a point with your age where naturally as women, head count starts to go down and all of that, and the possibilities of getting pregnant naturally start to fall, that's when he decided to tell you that he didn't want children.
Yes.
So that must have just felt like your whole world crashed down and you completely did not have control of anything.
It was devastating. I mean, in every way, devastating. And now I can say the truth is that if that was how he's felt, then he had no business being a father. And that's great that he knew that. But for me, it felt like the biggest betrayal I had ever experienced because I'm close with my family. I always wanted a family. I never really focused on it being it was always assumed. I mean, I always assumed this would be something that I could do and that would do. And then the partner that it sucks. It's hard. It's painful and you feel betrayed.
How do you even begin to pick yourself up from something like that? If you could really clearly define the stages, because it must have been a real process of grief and realization and all the...
Yeah. I mean,
like
really
losing someone, right?
process. Yeah, it's like somebody dying on purpose.
Yeah.
It's the truth. It's somebody who just, they're like, I would rather, and it was a clean break. We never spoke again, really. I mean, and God forbid, and like somebody that you love committing suicide, but it was a step after that, I guess, a step prior to that. It was like somebody dying, like that level of removal of your constant, of everything that you know, but deliberately. Then it just does also a number on your self-esteem and, well, who am I? I must be a terrible person. Like for this to happen at this point in my life and for somebody to not want to have a baby with me. I mean, that's a big pill. When I didn't hear, I don't want to have a baby, I heard, I don't want to have a baby with you. I researched every possible definition of the 7 stages of grief. There's 5 stages of grief sometimes. And of course, like the good girl I am, tried to define them all. Now I'm in the denial stage. It was just breaking me. It was breaking me. I couldn't eat. I lost 20 pounds in a couple months, which after I started dating again was convenient, but I was in tears all the time because nothing fit and I knew why. And I literally would come home from work, a job I really was miserable doing, and I would close the door and collapse in the hallway on the floor and cry almost every day for several months. Just, okay, I made it through that. And now I can just be alone and under my covers. I have anxiety. I have depression. It's like low-level depression, but I've had it for years. I had no idea. I started taking medication, which helped tremendously. I was seeing a therapist, and none of it made me feel good. I mean, it helped me eventually, but I was doing everything that I could to help myself feel better, like trying to, and I just felt empty and rejected.
Yeah, that's a really good word, rejection. There will be so many people that will be listening to your story and will completely resonate with what you have to say. I resonate. It wasn't as long a period as you were with your partner, but a long time ago, I was with him for 2 years. We were planning on getting married. He was the love of my life. I was so happy, so obsessed with him. And then it turned out he'd just literally been lying to me for 2 years.
Ugh.
About everything, about his background, about his education, his former jobs, his family, everything was a lie. And what you're describing about not feeling in control, it's like, I'm not in control of my life. The reality, it's like being in the Matrix.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Just all the numbers come down and it's, oh my goodness. So I'd love to know, first of all, because obviously we have this two-way conversation with our wonderful audience here on the podcast. So we would really love to know if you've ever been in a situation like that, if you've ever felt like that, if you're watching or listening to this. If someone is listening to this right now and going, oh my God, Carole, this is happening to me or it's happened to me. What takes you from being like that, feeling like that, coming home, the door shutting, lying on the floor crying, feeling distraught, grief, all the things, all the feelings, to being where you are now as, may I say, a very beautiful, put together, empowered, confident, capable woman who is, you're making the decisions about your life. You're making choices for yourself and you have those boundaries in place. How do you go from that to that? Talk us through the steps, please, because we want to know.
First and foremost, probably the biggest thing is my tribe. I am blessed with it. I was so desperate that my tribe showed up. And I had always kept things close to my chest, and I could no longer. It kind of put me in a vulnerable enough position that the women who could deal with that or wanted to deal with that, not all of them, and the men actually, but there were a few friends that were there and helped me up. They let me talk and talk and talk. God bless them. I must have been insane and sounded psychotic most of the time. But that was like the first thing. That happened because I let go of the secrets. I stopped keeping the secrets. I stopped protecting any of the relationship secrets I was having. I stopped protecting the secrets I had with how I grew up, any trauma I had. Everything was on the table. I couldn't hide. I couldn't have a baby. I couldn't figure out how to have a baby. It was on the table. And you are in the 12-step. I spent the 10 years in my 20s in a 12-step program for food because I have an eating disorder. And one of the biggest things that I always think about is you're as sick as your secrets. When you remove the secrets, not to everybody, I'm not saying to everybody, that's dangerous, that's unsafe. But when you remove the secrets from your people, they start to see who you are and that you're not the one that got rejected, that you're not this awful person, that you're not the person that you don't ever want to have a baby with, that you're a good person, that you're a good friend, and that you're shitty too, and that's okay, and they love you anyway.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm hearing from you, community,
yes,
first and foremost, is so important, and then being really honest with yourself. And I call them like dirty little secrets, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can feel like it's a dirty little secret. I don't want to share it with anyone. I don't want anyone to see it. It's going to expose me. There's a lot of shame that we hold around it. My family presented themselves as very put together, religious, the pillar of the community. Everyone admired us. You know, we were the example of the everything.
Yes.
Right? And there was so many, I didn't know this when I was little, but as I got older, I started to realize there were so many dirty little secrets within our family. And And I always was like, right, okay, if I feel like that about myself, to release that really empowers you, doesn't it? Because then you're not scared of being, I'm going to get found out. You're not going to get found out because you're standing in your own power and nobody's going to expose me because I'm here and I'm open, right?
Yeah.
And there's no secrets.
Yeah.
I love that you did that.
And it's funny because when you have those secrets, they feel huge.
Yeah.
And when you unearth them, basically everybody feels the same way. Everybody's got an alcoholic person. Everybody's got a person who's in some way, shape, or form. I mean, God forbid, but the truth is abusive. And then everybody's got a lot of these things that we hold so tight. Just everybody, it's so universal that it makes no sense that it's a secret on a certain level. And there's nothing you can say to me that I haven't said that I've said to myself that's worse to myself. So at a point, once you open that door up, you say what you want. I know.
It's freedom, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's move on now then to your life now. And one of the things that I really love in your bio, and I really love to say it, is that you're a single mama by choice. And I really love that expression because I'm not a mother by choice.
By choice. Say that by choice again, but I didn't mean to stamp on it.
There's a difference, right? There's a difference. Yes. I'm not a victim of my circumstances. You're not a victim of your circumstances. We've chosen a path. So these choices that you make in your life, this intention, the repurposing and repositioning the way that you look at life, after that really devastating episode that you had, what wisdom can you share with us about how we can start to be really intentional about designing our life?
Once you let go of what it's supposed to look like, it's there. I had my daughter. I was focused on having a baby for 8 years and then finally started trying to have a baby and spent 4 years on fertility, almost consecutively. I did 6 IVF treatments. I did 4 IUI treatments. I overhauled my nutrition. I overhauled the products that I use in my hair, on my face. I bought entirely new pots and pans. I got new shower curtains because of the chemicals, like everything that I did. And I still wasn't getting pregnant. I did everything right and I wasn't getting pregnant. And it wasn't until I opened up my mind to, I'm going to have a baby, whether that's through adoption, foster, egg donor, I'm going to have a baby. It's just not going to look like what I want. It's not going to be there's a dad and a mom and a baby and she's born out of my body. And when I let go of all of that, I was like, okay, now that I know that I don't know, how do I do this thing that I want? And that was freedom. That gave me the power to know in my bones that whether it's having a baby, changing my career, deciding I want a different relationship, deciding I don't want to be in a relationship, and that's okay too, deciding I don't want a baby, if that's the decision, I do have that choice. It will more than likely not look like what I want it to look like in my mind or what I think it should look like in my mind. But I know if I let that go and I stay true to what I enjoy, what makes me feel like me, I can find those things in those other pieces. So in this case, I had my daughter. She was a sperm and egg donor. I wanted to carry a baby. I tried it 3 times and it didn't work. Well, it worked on the 3rd time. I had taken a $25,000 loan out at that point, and I was 12 weeks pregnant, and the social worker was in my house doing a home visit to set up adoption. And I didn't believe my pregnancy was going to stay because I had already had a very bad miscarriage where it hemorrhaged and had an emergency abortion and all of it. And with that lesson, you can put that in anything. Like, it doesn't have to be a baby. It's anything. I was in television and I loved doing certain work in television. And then it wasn't supporting me. I wanted to have a baby. I needed more money. I didn't want to go to work at midnight. So I was able to say, okay, well, this looks glamorous and great and cocktail party stories and everybody loves it and blah, 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 but it doesn't do anything for me, but I like this part of it. So what's another career where I can do the stuff I like in another way that does support these other things? And then you push and you work and you focus. And I kind of had the attitude of, if you're not with me, you're against me. And I kind of needed that for a while because I needed nobody to say no. I needed nobody to judge me. I needed nobody to say you can't do it. I needed yeses. And I am, at this point, can be pathologically positive because I'm a New Yorker hardcore and a cynic and sarcastic. And I have a really funny sarcastic wit, so people like it. But the truth is it's dangerous. And you have to be vigilant around it. Otherwise, because if you want to do anything that's meaningful, including not having a baby and saying to other people, for some insane reason, offended by that, you have to fend off that. There's always something somebody's going to have. So it's really like those two, I think that the friends and the really like knowing truly what you want and then being open to what it could look like and finding it that way. Those were sort of, I think, my game changers.
I love that you're protecting yourself from your culture, because I always talk about the British culture, right? So I haven't lived in the UK all my life. I lived overseas for many years, but I'm British, right? And there is a culture about there needs to be something that we need to complain about. And most of the time it's the weather.
Amazing. And yes.
So it's cold and it's miserable and it's grey and then it gets sunny and it's too hot. And I know that that's probably the case worldwide, but there is something a little bit I can never say that word, deprivating.
Oh, deprecating. Yes.
That's the one. I can never say it.
Yes.
Like about putting yourself down. Don't get too big for your boots. Don't have ideas above your station, all of that. And definitely in the UK, there's kind of like this cool Britannia thing where if you're happy, I remember when I first started my business and I really started to understand about law of attraction and designing my own life and thinking positively, most people thought that I'd join a cult because they were like, well, why are you so happy? I was like, because I've decided, because I've chosen to be happy. I don't want to moan. I don't want to have a conversation about how shit the weather is. Yeah. Yes. I want to talk about what do you aspire to be? Like, what's your purpose and vision in this world? So I love that you're protecting yourself from the New York state.
And yes. No, you're so right. You don't see, it's your culture. You don't see it because you're surrounded by it. And it sort of feels like it's part of your personality at a point, but it doesn't have to be. It's just another choice that you've made to be that. But yeah, my best friend has the best wit I've ever met. She's so funny. We're so on it together. And I can be sarcastic and cynical with her. And she knows that. But the first person I told that I was going to start a podcast, and she was like, that's amazing. So I totally agree. You can choose to be a different person. And that positivity, yes, it is major. But it's a lot easier to stand on the sidelines and judge what's happening to other people than to say, I'm not where I want to be and I'm going to change that. And how do I do it? And do it is hard because it's not right away. And there's a lot of people out there, and bless them. I want them to be on their own path. But now it makes me sad because I was that person. I was like, I can't do that because it's going to be embarrassing. I can't do that because, and for me, embarrassment is not just embarrassment. It's like humiliation. Like I feel all embarrassment from my childhood. I feel it as humiliation, not embarrassment. And that was a big one for me to go, embarrassment is not the same as humiliated. Embarrassing is, okay, I'm talking about something with another human being. And this is a little embarrassing because I was like, I don't know, I picked my nose in the middle of a really important meeting and everybody suddenly looked at me. Like, that's embarrassing. Humiliation is something different, but you have to separate those two. But all of that has to be flushed out and reevaluated for you to be who you want to be, because you can choose that part. Like fundamentally, you're you, but there's so many choices about how you do you. and what you do to do you that aren't defining you. They're defining what you do.
Yeah, I love how you reposition that. And hey, if you want to pick your nose in a meeting, then you pick your nose in a meeting. Like,
Absolutely.
no, like you do you, boo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've sat there in meetings and had underwear on and nobody knows, fortunately. And, exactly. Exactly. And then some of them probably did know because I probably texted somebody.
Yes. I think when you can really, again, it's like talking about these things, isn't it? And releasing the shame of it. And when you can stop being so blinded by what's going to happen if I mess up? What's happen if I embarrass myself? What happens if I get rejected? What if that person ridicules me or laughs at me? We never go forward and do things. And being in the Women Thrive community, you'll attest to this. We're visible, right? We're putting ourselves out there. We're on podcasts. We're doing live shows on social media. We're on summits. We're speaking on stages. We're on radio shows, TV shows even. So when you are visible, you need to be able to clear whatever it is that's holding you back.
Yes.
You're just going to stay there, right? And just be worried about doing the thing and doing something wrong.
That's right. And that's why I love what you do, actually, because the visibility around it can be very vulnerable, but there's only one way to do it is by being visible. The only way is by being visible and being present. Yeah. And I'll tell you, it makes me a better mom. It makes me a better mom. I'm much more present with my kid than I would have been if I'd had her in my 30s because of all of this. I wanted to just say one other thing. I have anxiety and I didn't know it, but I have crippling anxiety and I've had it since I was a child. So mental health's a really big thing for me at this point. I'm really a big advocate of it. And it's hard when you have mental challenges that are very normal and they're finally starting to be talked about to a degree, but they still feel very taboo. And you're opening up about something that you have zero say in, which is I get anxiety. I mean, I get anxious. And so being visible and still being okay with the anxiousness, it's a lot. And you see somebody else who looks like they're not struggling and they're up there and you're like, well, why can't I do that? Oh, well, I'm feeling anxious in it. It's no. You don't know what they're going through to get there. And their big step, maybe your baby step, and your baby step, maybe their big step. The comparison part of it is very, very challenging, which is also what I love about Women Thrive, is that there's plenty of room in the pool.
And I think you've always got to look at if someone is on there on stage and you're comparing yourself to them, they're probably anxious as well. I know so many speakers that, like yourself, I feel anxious, but I'm doing it anyway. Like you feel the fear and you do it anyway. And obviously that famous book.
Bravery is not the lack of fear. It's just moving forward anyway. It's not that they don't feel it. It's just doing it anyway.
Exactly. So you mentioned there your podcast. So what's it like being on the other side of a podcast then and being today?
I'm definitely much more comfortable asking people questions than answering them at this stage, clearly. It's wonderful. When I first started doing it, it was really more of a selfish act. I had wanted to start a podcast when I just had my kid and I was like listening to two podcasts, Armchair Expert and Jenna Kutcher. And they are both great. And I enjoyed them so much. And I was like, I'd love to do this. And then 5 years passed. I'm a single mom by choice. I work full time at an intense job. My parents live in my building and they're in their 80s and they've had health issues. And I was taking care of everybody and had nothing for myself. And everybody was saying, you need to find something for yourself. And I was like, in what copious amount of time am I going to find something for myself? And finally, it got so much. My dad was in the hospital. There was just a lot of things. And I was like, it's not that I can find the times that I need this for myself. And then over time, I realized that it was serving me, but it was actually me serving others. Because the feedback that I got as I started to allow myself, as you said, to be more visible and to be honest in public, the feedback that I got from other people was like, I went through that. I really appreciated that you talked about that. I learned from that. There was a lot of connection that made me realize like the secrets, I'm so done. This is all about taking the lead to your life. And it just opened up a new path for me that I'd always wanted to do, but I didn't quite know how to articulate it. And this goes back to the same, you don't know what it's going to look like. I didn't even know what a podcast was 20 years ago because I don't even know if it existed. But you follow what maybe feels right. And I've made plenty of terrible choices, just for the record, like a lot. And the focus of the podcast is really about that. It's about life handed you a left turn that you weren't expecting, you didn't want, doesn't look like what you wanted. So, but it's here, it's in front of you. Now, what do we do about it? How do we move forward from it?
We feel very blessed to have you in our community. Congratulations on everything that you've achieved. And thank you for being you. What I really love about you and what really struck me about you when I first met you on our very first call was just how real you are and how open you are about your story. And you really own it and you really demonstrate that through your actions. And it's so important. We are so excited to have you as a speaker on the 2025 Women Thrive Summit. And thank you so much for coming on to our podcast today.
Thank you. I feel like I'm in very, very wonderful company in this group of amazing women. And it's like that saying, you never be the smartest person in the room. I am learning so much in this room with you guys. It's been spectacular. It's such a wonderful community. And I've loved talking to you. This was really a fun conversation and not being the interviewer. So I thank you for asking the questions.
Okay, so we're going to put all your links below, but can you just remind us, where can we find you?
If you know my name, my links. Carole Podell is Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, my website, even TikTok. I TikTok and I try to do some entertaining videos as well as go deep. But yeah, anywhere it's Carole Podell. It's Carole.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Right. Well, go and follow Carole and listen to her podcast. And thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Thank you. I so appreciate the time. This was really a fun chat.
Thank you for tuning in to Women Thrive podcast. If you found today's episode empowering and inspiring, be sure to subscribe and follow us. Better yet, leave a review and share it with others. We're committed to bringing you more stories that will empower and inspire you on your own journey. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep pursuing your dreams.